Hey, I'm Dave Berger from Hand in Hand Farm. We work with helping rebuild families. Dean Flaming, who is one of the trainee instructors, should soon be able to take over this class and help with the videos and the material. We're hoping he'll be able to teach some of this in the near future because we're getting so many calls for this, we can't meet them all ourselves. So he and his wife are attempting to start this as a ministry here in this church. Now, this is graduation weekend, and many families are not able to make it tonight. So what I want to do is a lesson that I use kind of amongst the others when necessary. What do you do when it doesn't work? And what I'd like to do is discuss with Dean here what it's like when he brings his kids out to the farm, when they're at Hand in Hand Farm, when they're at school, at church, how the kids put on a different persona for these. And then we'd like to discuss what was going on yesterday with one of his sons. So Dean, how many kids do you have, and how do they behave school, church, home, and at the farm?
We have 5 kids currently. Our oldest is 8, a girl, then 4 boys, 7, 6, 3, and then an infant, 8 months. And their behavior definitely changes from place to place. I would say that overall we see a trend upward in behavior and attitude as we continue with the processes and the programs that we're learning at the farm. But on a week in and week out basis, there will be days when one particular child is just an all-star at the farm. Does fantastic. Works his little tail off and follows directions, gets things done ahead of time, helps others, follows all the instructions, and then will come home and can't make it from one end of the house to the other to put away an item without getting distracted or lost or in a fight.
So Caleb, how old is he?
He just turned 6.
He just turned 6. And at the farm, he's acting better than most 17-year-olds. Don't ever tell the kid you want something unless you really want it, because it'll be done. And hardworking, helping, he looks around and he'll come up to us and so-and-so's over there and they're sad. You know, do you want to go help them? Yes. And that's the kind of thing that he does there. And then at home?
Not so much. He has a sensitive spirit and a sweet personality, and the potential is there to be this kind of a helpful person in all aspects of his life. But I don't know if it's simply because it's only his siblings at home or what the thing is, but the last few weeks it takes a lot of correction and extra work, a lot of the things that we're learning here, a lot of consistency on our part and keeping that shell really tight to make Caleb perform at home and do the things a 6-year-old is capable of doing.
So how does he do at school and church?
At school, he's an average student. His teachers give him at least an average report, nothing unexpected. You know, he's meeting the marks of a kindergartner. No big surprises, no excelling, but probably right between those two descriptions at school. And at church, everyone loves him and he does great. I'd say at church, it was probably like the farm as far as following directions and doing what he's expected to do. It's great.
Okay, now what about the next one up?
Next one up, especially lately, we've just been tracking his worst behavior is at the farm. Claims he loves to go, has a good time, has good things to say about it when he's not there, but at the farm things happen that shouldn't. He used to have trouble at school, a great deal of trouble at school, and has really strived to pull himself up. And right now at school, he gets great reports, especially compared to where you would have seen the bar 2 months ago, 3 months ago. They've learned to figure him out. They've built a tighter shell around him there. He's expected to do more there now and is really doing it and doing it well. And at home, I would say, he really kicked against the goads for a while and did not like to have a lot expected of him. But at home, also better than average, doing pretty well. Saturdays at the farm, another story.
And your oldest?
She probably, I guess, does pretty well at the farm, I'd say.
Yes.
Better than average, works hard,
Yes.
loves it,
Yes.
wants to train to run the place someday, just is completely in love with the farm. And at home has gotten her act together, not perfect, but who is. She has been doing school at home right now, an online public education course, and she's a different child when she's doing school at home than when she's just being part of the family at home. When she's doing her schoolwork, that's probably the lowest performance of those 3 areas. At church, average pretty well.
Okay. So what happened with his older son yesterday? The kids and some of the volunteers built a loft, a barn loft that the kids can go up and eat lunch and store jackets and such. And in the past, this kid has run up and down the ladder, into the loft, out of the loft, into the loft, out of the loft. Come on, let's get over here and get this job done. You don't see him, he's running up the ladder into that loft. This is a good thing. And then yesterday he got into the loft and decided he was so afraid he couldn't come down. He was too afraid to come down, and coming down wasn't safe. We had a little girl. Did I say small? And she's never climbed a ladder before. And she was shaking and she was shaking, and she climbed all the way up there and she climbed all the way down, and she stood there looking up at what she'd done, and that was really special. And there was probably, 6 or 8 other kids climbing up and down this ladder, some of them half the age of this boy. But when they all come down, he says, yes, she's a girl and she did it, but she's different than I am, and I'm afraid. So we told him, you don't mess with the stuff up here. And since he's been up and down this so many times, we thought, well, big deal. We'll just have him bored out of his skull for a little while. And he'll be down well before lunchtime. Usually these things last about, 45 minutes or so.
Maximum.
We don't see him go on for 3 hours. Well, he stayed in the loft, and he screamed, and he yelled, and he tried throwing things, and he threw his boots off, and he threw his socks off, and he ran around yelling, and anything he could do, and we just tell people, ignore him. When he needs to go to the bathroom, when he wants something to eat, something to drink, he'll be down for lunch. Now, I hate to see a kid go without the bright stuff to eat and drink. That is not good. And yet this kid, I'm not going to come down. It's too dangerous. Now, you may think, well, maybe it's because he didn't want to step from the wood onto the ladder, but sometimes he'd step his whole body onto the ladder and go down just till his head was sticking up above the loft. All the rest of his body is below it. And he'd just scream at us that it was too dangerous to climb. So he'd go back up into the loft. It wasn't because he couldn't get from the loft to the ladder. He drew this out as a battleground. He went. We had his lunch down there. We said, just come down and get your lunch. Soon you're going to... Time his dad got there, the kid had wet his pants rather than come down from the loft. The kid hadn't come down for anything to eat or anything to drink. And this is a loft he's been in and out, in and out. He chose to make it a battleground. He spent his whole, he was up there from about 9 in the morning till when did you get there?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. And all he had to do was come down, and like I say, he was standing on the ladder part of that time, screaming, "You can't make me climb down any farther." Well, now here we are with this situation. We hate, it's really, bad thing to have this kid's blood sugar going down. He needs stuff to drink. Do we just feed him while he's up there? Well, that isn't a good idea. We're just subsidizing the monster. What do you do? This is a situation where he is choosing. When his dad got there, the kid had wet his pants rather than come down. And 3 or 4 times during the day, we had seen him on the ladder. And remember, this is a ladder he's played on before. Now, was I right to tell him? Usually he doesn't last an hour at this kind of thing. Was I right to tell him, well, you can have something to eat and drink when you come down? So here I am looking at this kid that's up in this loft. He's been there, he's sweating, he's dusty from all rolling on the floor and wallowing and crying. He hasn't had anything to eat or drink since 9 o'clock in the morning. Dad gets there at 4. What do you think he's feeling like? Now, Dean, he was pretty nice about the whole thing. But what do you do? This is a child that sometimes, over other things, will choose not to give in. Is he getting more mature and he refuses to give in on things now? Is he going to get worse from here? Do we just give in? Oh, you need something to eat, so no matter what you're doing, I'll give you something to eat and something to drink? I've got a bad leg. I wear a leg brace on this thing. I can't go carrying a kid down out of the barn loft like his daddy can. Oh. Suggestions, Dean. What could I have done?
Sometimes what will happen with him is he will create this monster of a situation, and like a lot of monsters will, it gets out of his control. He's up in the loft and he hasn't gotten his way, and now he doesn't know what to do.
Neither did I.
He knows he's hungry and all of this. With this particular child, what has sometimes worked, what may have worked, is he will follow the lead of, he's very much a follower. You have an argument with some children and they're 3 steps ahead of you, right? If you get sucked into an argument, you've got to be a really good debater and be thinking of ways to circle around. With him, it's play for play. What I have done at times is say, okay, time out, let's just start over. Let's start over. With some kids, they'd see that as a victory. Aha, I got him. With him, he's following your lead. We're going to start over. What that means is you step back from the situation, maybe let him go to the bathroom, rewind and regroup, and after he has taken a walk or something, we'll go back and we'll revisit what he was doing. He's not going to get out of the claim that he made, but we'll say, okay, now that your head's a little clearer, show me climbing that ladder, show me coming back down that ladder, and by the way, since you wasted an hour of my time, or however long it's been, here's the things you're going to do to make up for it. And he's usually had a pretty good attitude about that.
We tried something like this by going up into the loft and talking to him and having a whole herd of other kids come up there and say, now look, they can do it. It didn't work. What else could we have tried, Dean? But, I mean, taking him for a walk, taking him to the bathroom, I can't bring the bathroom up into the loft for him, and B, I couldn't carry him down the ladder.
Sometimes, as silly as it might sound, I'll make some ridiculous statement and a joke. And I can't think of one as for the moment, of course, right now. But a statement that's so wild and so out there and so crazy. This is what brought him down on the drive home, because I literally carried him out to the van over my shoulder and strapped him in, and we hit the road. And I cracked some joke about his little brother. He was complaining about his little brother, Pastor Sam. So I said, hey, when he puts on a monkey suit and swings from the chandelier banging a drum, which created a mental picture that made him laugh, I said, you just need to ignore that. And he laughed, and something clicked. He was locked into this struggle about the loft. And I don't know why, and I don't know why for 7 hours. But when he laughed at something really silly, suddenly he was better.
So that would work for the people that have a sense of humor.
Right.
What could I have done? See, I thought I was trying to break up his energy.
Right.
So what I'd like to do right now is turn off the cameras, turn off the recorder, and just talk about this for a while. Okay, I've been asked many times about autism, and people have wondered where the vision for Hand in Hand Farm came in. Where did these parenting classes start? And so many people have asked about this. I went back into my childhood when I first got this vision, and I decided to try to write what I felt at the time. Now remember, we didn't know about this autism and Asperger's syndrome till I was in my 40s. People just knew I had crooked legs. They just knew I was strange. They knew I would fixate on something and couldn't come out of it. The other kids didn't like me much. So, and I was constantly getting in trouble but could never figure out why. It didn't make any sense what I was getting. I would even be getting punished for the face things that I did if I did the wrong wrinkles or if I did the wrong voice things. And I could never figure this out. So thinking as I felt when I was like in 3rd, 4th grade, it's hard. It's so hard to deal with them. It takes so much, so very much from me just to be near them. They are fast. They can go and go so quickly and enjoy it so much. I can't. My asthma, my crooked legs trapped in these high corrective boots, and my inability to understand them makes a barrier that cannot be crossed. It cannot be crossed no matter how often or how hard I try. This barrier is approached continually. But most approaches are met with rejection and failure. It's so hard and so exhausting to deal with them. So exhausting. They communicate with grunts, incomprehensible changes in the voice things they do, with wrinkling their faces and doing things with their hands. So little of it is even remotely understandable, and it's hard, so hard to concentrate enough to make out any of what they mean. Yet, somehow, it means a lot to them. And the rules are strange, so strange. They gather, grunt, make face wrinkles, and do voice things, and then quickly, oh so quickly, they're gone. On the playground, in parks and towns, and in my home, they exist everywhere. They go together. I cannot go with them. I can't go with them physically, for this body and crooked legs hold me here. I cannot go with them spiritually because I cannot find out who they are or how they communicate. I am me. They are the others. I offend a different group. Somehow, and I can so rarely figure out how, I make them angry. Because I cannot understand what made them angry, how can I prevent it from happening again? They also try to cross the barrier, but they seem to know even less about it than I do, and many times they try to deny that it even exists. They demand I do things that make no sense and are angry when I can't figure out what I did. At times they say hurtful and insulting things, but change their voices, and when they do, they're puzzled and angry when I get hurt over what they say. They call it teasing. I call it lying. How can a change in voice things change it from a lie to a joke? How can anyone understand that? But they seem to have it figured out. I see things they cannot, and I'm punished for making up things, but I know the things are real, for I see them. They seem to think that their own perception is truth, but there's so very much they just do not see that is so real. I'm short, they're tall, but that doesn't mean they can think. They're completely and totally illogical, and their communication has little meaning and even less chance of being understood. Yet they expect me to respond in ways that cannot be memorized, but must be somehow deciphered, each time, somehow. When I get into trouble, they try so repeatedly and uselessly try to explain how I used the wrong words. But how can I get the pictures in my head to come out the right way when the only tool is words? How does anyone learn what the face wrinkles and voice things mean? And how can anyone tell the difference? In some way, the voice things they call tone, and the face things they call expression tie to pictures real people use to think. But what makes those tie together and how? Is it possible to believe that words and voice things and face things tie together to keep people from being angry? It seems that somehow they do. If I use the wrong voice things, I'll again be in trouble, but how am I to know what voice thing I used? How can that match mere words? If I use the wrong face wrinkles, it is somehow disrespectful or putting someone down, but how am I to know what those face things are? How can one tell the difference between the face wrinkles people call frown and the ones they call smile? Both means you wrinkle your eyes and show your teeth. Yet somehow these tall people hold the difference as important, and getting it wrong means, well, it means I'll be punished. But why? I'm me. They are parents. They are teachers. Yet there's another kind of being. In this company, communication is clear. Each gesture, each snort, each breath, each movement has such rich meaning it makes me weep. Here I can fit in. Here I can understand. Here I can and do belong. With these on them, I have mobility. I can cover huge distances without my legs hurting. For a time, I can run, jump, play, and move with other living beings I can understand, who will talk to me in their own way and allow me to be just who I am without judgment and without excluding me. It's so comforting to have a language that has no face things or voice tones for communication, that does not have the danger of words. For a time, I can be powerful and free while mounted. For a time, I can rest and not have to be so constantly on guard as when with the others. These creatures let me be in their world. A world of such rich communication and beauty, and I can be an active and valued part of that world. I can help them, lead them, and make their lives better as I take responsibility as a leader and remove some of their fears. Here I am not lonely. Here I can have the ultimate acceptance, being a trusted leader. Here, for a time, I'm free of the social torment of being with the others. Here there's no need for lies, deceit, deception, and games. Here with them is home. I am me. They are horses. Together we are free. There's a place where I'm safe. A place where it's quiet and things stay where you leave them. The beings in this place have few demands. Water, keeping them free of weeds, giving them what they need to eat. And together we can be safe. I am me. They are plants. They are a garden. This was my childhood. I met other children with problems with their bodies, with their minds, and with their families. I took my experiences with the brush and the horses, with the garden, and with my grandparents, and I turned them into a wonderful fantasy world. In this wonderful place, whole and healthy children would be working and playing with plants, gardening, mules, and horses. Those of us with problems could be part of this great group where we would be accepted and be able to work, ride, and drive the horses and mules. In my fantasy world, we'd drive these horses and mules in parades, ride them in the brush, ride them in the mountains, timber, and a hot desert. We'd be able to bring in terrified and damaged horses, help them heal, and go on to rich and wonderful lives with people who understand them. We would be able to bring in terrified and damaged children. Help them heal and go on to rich and wonderful lives. We would have some great horses and mules that stayed with us for their lives, and others would come to this working ranch and then go on with their own life. The grandparents in this fantasy world would teach our parents to understand what we need and how to love us. Those grandparents would teach us to get along with the others. This was my childhood fantasy world with a core group of great horses, mules, and people who would love us and teach our families to do so as well. And then I realized this world could actually be built. So we have. That's Hand in Hand Farm.